What happens when you take, like, modern, ruthless corporate law and just apply it to a super rigid medieval fantasy world?
It completely breaks the system.
Oh,
Totally.
shatters it.
Yeah.
Imagine you wake up and suddenly you're in the body of a 19-year-old noble. His name is Ray White Silverwood. You're lying in this dimly lit room, staring at the ceiling, and you quickly realize you're considered a dying B-rank sword failure.
Which is pretty bleak.
Very bleak. Just to put that in perspective for you, in a world where an A rank is essentially a walking tactical nuke, a declining B rank is functionally useless. Your family is absolutely broke. Your 13-year-old brother Carlin is this A-plus prodigy that everyone just adores.
All right, the golden child.
Exactly. And your parents are literally selling you off in an arranged marriage for 3,000 gold coins.
And we should clarify, 3,000 gold is an astronomical sum. I mean, if a typical commoner family in this setting lives on, say, 10 to 15 gold coins a year, 3,000 is generational wealth.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's essentially a massive corporate buyout that's just been disguised as a wedding.
Right. And your prospective bride, her name is Elena Brab. She's an 18-year-old discarded bride of the Crown Prince. She was sent away because she evaluated with F-rank magic. So to recap, you have 0 health, 0 gold, and everyone in your own house wants you gone the absolute second the check clears.
A total distressed asset.
Yes. So what do? Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking this fascinating interactive fantasy narrative that operates like a literal masterclass in hostile takeovers.
It really is. What's fascinating here is how the narrative takes these rigid fantasy status systems, things like ranks and mana, and treats them not as magical destiny, but as a rigid regulatory framework, one that can be legally exploited using just cold, hard logic.
I love that. Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to explore how this protagonist uses contract law, biological hacking, and ruthless macroeconomics to turn a literal death sentence into absolute sovereignty.
It's a brilliant pivot.
So let's start with what we're calling the distressed asset marriage negotiation. The scene opens with Ray White's father, Baron Silverwood, and this guy Duke Valdor Brighton, presenting the marriage contract to Ray White. The Baron is sweating bullets. He just wants that 3,000 gold from Elena's family to pay off his debts and fund his golden child younger son.
And he expects Ray White to just roll over and sign it.
Right. But instead of playing the victim, Ray White does something totally unexpected. He delays the signing and secures a private meeting with Elena first.
Which is a huge power move. By calmly asking to meet his prospective bride, he invokes old aristocratic etiquette. Duke Valdor, who's expecting to see this broken, dying boy, is suddenly intrigued. Ray White is acting like a rational player.
He preserves his dignity completely.
Exactly. He shifts the power dynamic in the room and buys himself 24 hours to strategize.
And when that meeting happens, it's just incredible. Elena walks in, and she's carrying the weight of the world. She introduces herself as a vessel for expectations. She's had this intense royal education, but because of her F-rank status, she's just been tossed aside.
She thinks her life is basically over.
Yeah, but Ray White listens, and then he immediately pivots the framing. He points out this glaring issue. He says, look, if you just sign the contract and give the 3,000 gold to my father, and then I die from my illness.
Which is what everyone expects to happen.
Right. If he dies, she becomes a penniless widow in a totally hostile house. She'd be ruined.
He paints the picture of her immediate future very clearly. But then he offers an alternative. He proposes she basically invests in herself.
Yes.
By becoming the executor of the house's salvation rather than just a liability being passed along.
It's like two distressed assets looking at the balance sheet and realizing that if they merge, they can stage a hostile takeover of the parent company.
That's exactly what it is.
They're the only liquid capital the company has. But I have to ask, if the Baron is so desperate for cash and he holds all the institutional power as the head of the house, how do they actually get him to agree to lose his payday? Why doesn't he just forge Ray White's signature or force him to sign it at sword point?
Well, that's where the legal loophole comes in. It's because of Duke Valdor. The Duke isn't just a guest. He's acting as a royal proxy and a legal witness. If the Baron forces the signature, the contract could be invalidated under high nobility law.
Oh, wow. So Ray White knows he has an audience.
Precisely. He structures a new deal leveraging that very legal framework. By framing 2,000 gold of the dowry as a succession stability fee, he places it into a joint trust that requires both Ray White and Elena's signatures to access.
That's so smart.
Right, and he only gives 1,000 gold for the Baron's immediate debts, legally shielding the rest of the capital.
But what if the Baron just says no?
Well, the underlying threat is beautifully subtle. If the Baron refuses, Rewhite hints that his fragile health might just, fail him before the wedding even happens. A dead groom means avoided contract, leaving the Baron with absolutely nothing but angry creditors.
Oh, that is ruthless. So he invents leverage out of thin air,
Yeah.
and Duke Veldor just loves it. He sees the ironclad legal soundness of it, so the contract gets signed.
And Elena's loyalty completely shifts to Rewhite. She recognizes him not as a dying tool, but as a true strategic partner.
Right, because he treated her like a person with agency. Okay, so they have their initial capital,
Yeah.
but, and this is big, but liquid assets don't mean much if the CEO is actively dying.
True, which transitions us perfectly from financial strategy to biological survival. We have to address why Rewhite is dying in the first place.
The truth is actually horrifying. His parents have been slowly poisoning him for 2 years.
Yeah, it's incredibly dark. They've been using ambient aphrodisiacs and supposedly strengthening soups to induce chronic vitality depletion.
Wait, strengthening soups like they were pretending to heal him.
Exactly. The goal wasn't a sudden assassination, which would draw a royal investigation. The goal was to intentionally drop his physical potential from a high rank down to a B rank, creating this plausible narrative of a natural, tragic illness.
All to ensure his brother Carlin's succession is uncontested.
Yes.
It's very Borgia family, like Renaissance Italy politics, but with magic. But Rewhite figures it out. His mother comes into his room with this high-grade pink vitality booster and a bowl of the tainted soup.
And she expects him to just consume it like a good son.
Right. But Rewhite plays the naive son perfectly. He intentionally coughs his own blood into the soup to ruin it, so he has a valid excuse not to eat it. And then he plays the concerned, scared kid. He insists his mother sit on the bed and stay in the room to comfort him.
It's such a lethal counterplay. By manipulating her maternal guilt to keep her trapped in the enclosed room, she is forced to breathe in the concentrated airborne toxins of her own high-grade potion.
The very miasma she brought to weaken him starts to overwhelm her.
Exactly. She starts sweating, losing her aristocratic composure, and she's eventually forced to literally flee the room, leaving the evidence behind.
He weaponizes her own plausible deniability against her. It's brilliant. But, okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The wedding night. The purge. Rewhite had found a hidden S-rank void-breathing manual under his floorboards.
Right, an ancient technique.
And on their wedding night, he and Elena used the intense physical exertion of the evening to trigger the manual's breathing techniques. So he basically turns the very poison meant to ruin him into the catalyst for his power-up.
That's exactly it. The metabolic mechanics here are just fascinating. The extreme physical friction and the resulting metabolic acceleration act as a biological furnace.
A biological furnace, wow.
The extreme friction and accelerated heart rate force the chronic toxins out of his marrow as this dark, viscous sweat. He uses the residual poison as combustible fuel for his own physical purge.
And while this is happening, they discover something absolutely wild about Elena. She isn't an F-rank failure at all.
Not even close. The traditional evaluation crystals couldn't read her because she doesn't project mana. She absorbs it. She's what's called a mana void.
Which the system just registers as 0.
Right. And the text notes her physique with highly specific, conditioned measurements. 165 centimeters, 52 kilograms, and 88, 58, 90 proportions.
It's very specific.
It is, but the narrative frames this not as mere aesthetics, but as a high-density, high-pressure biological vessel. She is a physical masterpiece capable of absorbing and compressing immense amounts of energy.
I love this analogy. It's like trying to measure a solar panel's value by how much light it emits, rather than how much energy it absorbs. The kingdom was looking for a light bulb, so it labeled her a failure. But she's actually a high-capacity battery.
That's a perfect way to look at it. During this physical exertion, Rewhite is purging this intense void-breathing energy, and Elena acts as a heat sink, absorbing that purged energy and jump-starting her own dormant system.
So by the morning, the dual circulation completely clears Rewhite's system. He shatters his physical ceiling and jumps to a 3-circle A rank.
An incredible leap.
And Elena awakens a D-rank mana circle and unlocks a rare trait called mana magnetism. They fundamentally rewrite their own biology in a single night.
And with their upgraded biology, they can finally enforce their financial leverage.
Right, because the next morning they emerge transformed. They immediately split that 2,000 gold trust. 1,000 is sent via courier to the Royal Bank of Elusia, completely out of the Baron's reach.
Securing the offshore account, essentially.
Exactly. And the other 1,000 is kept in an iron chest in their room for immediate liquid leverage. Rewhite walks out radiating this A-rank pressure. He completely silences his father, forces his A-plus prodigy brother Carlin to his knees,
A total reversal of the family dynamic.
and he demands a mana-bonded oath from his parents if they want to remain part of the house. He basically decapitates the hierarchy before breakfast.
It's a bloodless conquest of his own family. But as we know, once you overthrow your immediate hierarchy, the real world comes knocking.
Right, you can't exist in a vacuum.
Exactly. A new threat emerges almost immediately on their border. A mid-tier blue portal dungeon appears.
A dungeon. Finally, some classic fantasy stuff.
Well, sort of, but a neighboring lord, Baron Kalen Vane, illegally marches onto Silverwood land to claim it. And Kalen is a B-plus rank warrior, and he brings 20 heavy infantrymen with him.
He just smells weakness and wants the resources. Now, push back on me here, because Rewhite is a 3-circle A rank now. He's a walking tactical nuke. Why doesn't he just march down there, unleash his new power, and obliterate Vane to send a message to the rest of the kingdom?
Because of optics and feudal law. If Rewhite unilaterally slaughters a neighboring baron, he looks like an unstable warmonger. The larger kingdom would unite to crush him. He has to defeat a heavily armed rival without drawing a sword, providing himself with absolute legal cover.
If he attacks, he looks like the bad guy. So how do you defeat a heavily armed rival peacefully? The tactical masterstroke he uses is just a thing of beauty. He looks at his limited forces. He's got 30 men-at-arms, 100 levies, and 3 knights.
Not a massive army.
No. So he divides them into 3 units. He takes a small vanguard and rides completely peacefully to meet Kalen. And Kalen is expecting a military clash, right? He's ready for a screaming match.
But Rewhite arrives unarmed, looking like a scholar on a stroll.
And Kalen falls right into the trap. He gets all puffed up and boasts that the sword is the map and openly declares a might makes right doctrine to justify his land grab.
Which is the biggest mistake he could make. What he doesn't realize is that Elena is standing right there, using her SS rank intellect to record his exact words, the time, and the place as a legal witness.
She literally writes down his confession of banditry.
Right. Because if we connect this to the bigger picture, Rewhite is using Kalen's own words as a legal shield. Sworn witness testimony of a noble establishing a new legal doctrine is binding.
And while Kalen is monologuing in the mud, Rewhite's shadow unit has quietly marched over the border and seized Kalen's incredibly lucrative iron mines and trade routes, because Kalen brought 70% of his total forces to the border to posture,
leaving his own lands completely exposed. It's a bloodless economic decapitation. Rewhite explains to Kalen that under his own newly declared might makes right doctrine, a superior force just plucked the resources he was too weak to defend.
Checkmate. Kalen is completely trapped. He can't complain to the royal crown because the crown would see his own recorded statements rejecting royal borders.
He gave Rewhite the legal precedent to take his territory, so Kalen is forced to bend the knee.
He has to sign a document leasing his own iron mines back to Rewhite for 10 years for a mere 1,000 gold coins, which Rewhite pays using the liquid capital from the dowry.
It's an absolute steal. It funds the Silverwood house for the next decade.
The border is secured, the rival is neutralized, and they didn't lose a single soldier. It's insane. But okay, with the border secured, they turn to the dungeon. The whole reason this conflict started.
Right. Territory's just dirt until you monetize it.
In a normal fantasy narrative, this is where we get the montage of our hero grabbing a sword, running into the caves, and slaying monsters for loot. But Rewhite, he approaches this magical anomaly like a municipal zoning board.
He turns it into a platform business. Pure monopoly capitalism.
He sets up a barricade and establishes a military toll zone. He charges independent adventurers an exorbitant fee of 1 gold coin just to enter. He even puts a loyal receptionist, Sarah Akori, at the front desk to process the paperwork.
The legal framing here is brilliant. Anyone bypassing the toll isn't just trespassing. They are legally labeled an insurgent. This specific designation allows Silverwood forces to neutralize them and seize all their magical gear as evidence.
And to prove the law is absolute, Rewhite and Elena actually pay their own 1 gold toll at the desk before entering the first time.
Setting that legal precedent is crucial. It shows the law applies to everyone.
So they go into floor 1, the Whispering Crypts, and they just obliterate the low-tier skeletons and ghouls. But they aren't treating them as epic foes. They're gathering beast cores and an alchemy-grade ghoul heart.
They're treating the monsters as raw material suppliers for a broader macroeconomic ecosystem.
Then they face the mid-boss, It's this massive ghoul matriarch tethered to two stone statues for infinite regeneration, flanked by two lizardmen warriors.
A tough fight for a normal party.
Yeah, but their execution is perfectly synced. Rewhite uses an A-rank move, Void Horizontalia, to instantly sever the lizardmen. Elena uses her mana magnetism to destroy the statue anchors.
And when the matriarch tries to use a paralyzing necrotic screech,
Rewhite uses an A-rank Void Dash, clamps her jaw shut, and executes her. Surgical.
Bah.
They claim a high-tier Ghoul Matriarch core and a rank B Shadow Step skill book, which Elena learns instantly thanks to her SS rank intelligence. She can literally blink through space now.
but the real victory isn't the loot they carry out of the boss room. The real victory is that as they descend to Floor 2, the Frosted Ossuary, they own the toll booth that all the other adventurers are currently lining up to pay for.
They are vastly richer, perfectly synced, and ready to dominate the market. They structured the macroeconomics around the dungeon before anyone else even realized it was an industry.
They didn't just survive the anomaly, they monopolized the ecosystem.
So what does this all mean for you? I think this narrative is a profound reminder that your greatest liabilities, a failing body, a discarded partner, a hostile rival, can all be weaponized if you change the rules of engagement.
Look at the so-called F ranks in your own life or business.
Exactly. Sometimes they aren't failures at all. They're just being measured by the wrong system. Elena was an F rank in a system looking for a light bulb, but as a solar panel, she was an absolute powerhouse.
This raises an important question, though, something to mull over. If Rewhite conquered his family and economically decapitated a neighboring baron in 24 hours simply by applying modern legal and economic leverage, what happens when the broader kingdom realizes what's happening?
Oh, that's the real danger, isn't it?
Exactly. What happens when the royal court realizes they aren't dealing with a rogue noble, but an entirely new paradigm of power? When the system realizes you're playing a completely different game, do they change their rules, or do they try to flip the board entirely?
That is the 3,000 gold coin question. You wake up in a broken system, and instead of letting it break you, you buy the board. Keep questioning the narratives you are handed, and remember, the next time someone points to a rigid diagnostic chart and tells you what your limits are sometimes, that machine is just broken. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.